If you want to sell Amazon FBA products in Canada, you need to be tax compliant. In this video, you will learn about different Canadian taxes, GST, PST, HST. My guest will be Alex from SimplyVAT. She and her team helps Amazon sellers to be tax compliant in European Union, in Canada, and few more countries. You'll find the link below to SimplyVAT as well. And if you enjoy our content, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to our channel. Hello, Alex. It's nice to have you here. Please introduce yourself and tell us, how do you help Amazon sellers?
Hello, yeah, thank you so much for having me back on the channel. So my name is Alex Wyatt. I work for SimplyVAT.com, and we help Amazon sellers and e-commerce sellers trade internationally by helping them VAT register and comply in multiple different jurisdictions around the world.
And today we will be talking about taxes in Canada. So a lot of North American Amazon sellers are probably already selling in Canada, and maybe many are considering. Of course, it is the same for European-based sellers. When they expand to US, they might also consider Canada. And today you will learn everything about tax situation for Amazon sellers. So I know you have some presentation, so let's jump in.
So yeah, I wanted to cover off Canada today because it is a growing market, and especially for many people that are already in the United States. The next kind of easiest option would be going straight up into Canada. It's the same language. You might have to add in French into some of your listings as well. But other than that, it should be quite straightforward. So let's jump into the tax obligations here. So we have three different types of indirect taxes. We have the GST, which is the goods and services tax. That's at the federal level, and that's 5% Canada-wide. So on all products being sold across Canada, there's at least 5% GST tax. Then we have the HST. HST is the harmonized sales tax. So this includes GST and PST together under one tax rate and one filing. And this is in provinces like Ontario, Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland and Labrador. And then finally, we have the PST. So this is the provincial sales tax, and this is a specific tax rate and filing in a specific province. And these provinces that have PST are British Columbia, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and Quebec. So we're going to jump right in to cover the general tax rules within Canada. So over the last few years in Canada, they've also implemented similar rules to those that were implemented here over in Europe, where marketplaces are seen to be facilitating sales to end consumers, and therefore are considered the deemed suppliers. So this has been a trend over the last few years where we're shifting from the tax collection and reporting from the seller over to the marketplace, so that the marketplace is the one that is responsible for all of these and making sellers' lives a lot easier. So it means that if you're selling on Amazon in Canada, Amazon is responsible in specific circumstances to calculate taxes, collect and remit taxes to the Canadian government. And one of the things about why I mentioned calculate as well is that in Canada, the GST, PST, or HST is all calculated at the point of sale. So it's different to over here in Europe, where everything is included, all the taxes are included for sellers when they go to checkout. In Canada, it's the GST, PST, or HST is added at the checkout. So it depends on where the end consumer is, and that would be where the taxes are calculated. So what does this mean? If you are a seller on Amazon.ca and you're shipping goods from within Canada to Canadian consumers, and you have not registered for GST or HST with Amazon, Amazon is responsible to calculate, collect, and remit the GST on all of your Canadian sales. So that means if you're not already GST registered, you will not need to GST register. Amazon is going to collect this. Now, if you have triggered a GST registration or HST registration on Maybe you're selling on your own website or on another marketplace such as the Bay in Canada, and you are required to GST register. You must upload your GST number in your Amazon Seller Central, and then you will be responsible to collect and sell the taxes, or remit the taxes on Amazon's behalf. So again, going into this, these rules are only applicable to overseas sellers or non-Canadian businesses. So Canadian businesses will have different rules, much like over here in the UK, where UK sellers are still responsible for their own VAT on sales on Amazon.co.uk. In Canada, same thing over there. So if you're an overseas seller or non-Canadian business with the and not registered for the GST regime, then you do not need to GST register. And as I mentioned, if you remain liable for the GST or HST compliance if you're already registered under these two schemes. I mentioned before the PST, so these are the province-specific sales tax. And in these provinces, we have Manitoba, British Columbia, Quebec, and Saskatchewan. All of these different provinces have their own way of handling PST for marketplace sellers. So we're going to go into each of the provinces and what your obligations are in each jurisdiction. So starting out with Manitoba. The online platform that's actually facilitating the sale, so Amazon, must charge PST on all of the taxable sales made on their website that they're facilitating. So this means that the platform is responsible for all of the collection of the PST, whether or not the seller is registered for GST. So you need to make sure that the marketplace is actually collecting that PST on your behalf. But other than that, you have no obligation to PST register if you're only selling on Amazon. Moving into British Columbia. So there's been some new rules in British Columbia as of July 2022. Specifically for marketplaces. So in certain circumstances, marketplaces must charge and collect PST on sales of goods, software, and services that they're facilitating on behalf of the sellers. This also means that marketplaces must charge PST on services that they supply. So what does this mean as a seller? So as of the 1st of July 2022, marketplaces are going to be charging 7% PST on all of their services, including your listings, your storage, any fulfillment usage that you're doing. They're also going to be charging this to you as a seller. Now, you cannot reclaim this if you're not PST registered. So you need to calculate that into kind of your overheads when selling in Canada, in British Columbia, because the marketplace will be charging you this and you can't reclaim. In British Columbia, they're also following similar rules that we saw over in France over the last few years, where there's a new annual information return where marketplaces now need to be reporting all of the information that they have on individual sellers on their platform on an annual basis to the British Columbian tax authorities. So just keep in mind, every single transaction is going to be shared with the tax authorities, and we need to be making sure that you're being compliant throughout your sales. Moving on to Quebec. Quebec, we have QST, which just stands for Quebec sales tax. So there's a $30,000 Canadian dollar threshold that applies for marketplaces where they must register for QST in Quebec. And the seller will actually remain responsible for QST collection and remittance if they're already registered for QST. So it's different to Manitoba, where Manitoba you could be already registered, but the marketplace still remits that tax over on your behalf. But in Quebec, it follows similar to GST, whereas if you're already QST registered, then you are going to be responsible to collect and remit the QST over to the tax authorities on a regular basis. Quebec also has an annual information report that's submitted by marketplaces similar to British Columbia. So the marketplace is responsible to submit all the information that they have on the individual seller on an annual basis. And finally, we have Saskatchewan. So in Saskatchewan, the online platforms must charge for PST for everything that they sell to consumers, as well as services. So fees are going to be charged on the services supplied by the platform to the underlying supplier. They're all going to be subject to PST. So this again includes any kind of listings, fulfillment, anything like that. You're going to be charged Saskatchewan PST. You won't be able to reclaim this PST unless you are PST registered in Saskatchewan. So again, you're going to have to consider this into your margins when you are selling in Saskatchewan. When marketplaces are already registered for PST, the seller does not need to PST register. So the marketplace will be responsible for collecting and remitting all the PST on B2C transactions in Saskatchewan, but the seller has an obligation to make sure that the marketplace is collecting and remitting the PST on their behalf. So if you're selling on any other, Amazon will be a big marketplace who would have a PST registration in place, but if you're selling on any other smaller marketplaces within Saskatchewan or across Canada, make sure that they do have a PST registration in Saskatchewan, because you would be held jointly liable for that PST if the marketplace was not responsible. And that's why you'll see other platforms like the Bay in Canada, if you're selling on there, they do require you to register for taxes yourself because they are not going to be held responsible, or they don't want to be held responsible for taxes. So just keep that in mind if you're selling into Saskatchewan. And that's all I have to cover today on Canadian taxes. So I've tried to keep it as simple as possible in terms of your obligations, but I'm happy to answer questions, Augustus, that you have for me on taxes so far.
By the way, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like and subscribe this video. Yes, I have a few questions. So when people are sending their goods to Canada from US or from Europe, there are import taxes. Can you explain a little bit about import taxes and how much can you claim them back?
Yeah, of course. So when you're shipping into Canada, you're going to be charged 5%. It's covered by the GST. So it's going to be 5% import tax when shipping into Canada. Now, again, if you are not GST registered or HST registered, you cannot reclaim this 5%. So if, for example, you're only selling on Amazon Marketplace and you're shipping your goods in, and Amazon is actually collecting all the taxes on your behalf under the GST, then you won't be able to reclaim any of your import taxes if you're not GST registered. So you're going to have to consider that 5% import tax kind of as a write-off. You won't be able to reclaim that. If you do want to reclaim your 5% import taxes, maybe you're selling on multiple marketplaces or your own website and you want to reclaim that, you will need to get that GST registration, and then you upload your GST registration onto Amazon. Amazon no longer becomes responsible for collecting and remitting the taxes for you, and that is now your responsibility to collect and remit any of the sales taxes on Amazon on your own behalf.
And in Canada, when your Amazon seller puts out the product, the price they see on Amazon, the Canadian buyer doesn't have any additional taxes added in the checkout, or it is added like in US?
It is added like in the US. So it all, so you're going to list what we call the net price, so exclusive of taxes. That's going to be listed on all of your listings on Amazon And then at the point where a consumer goes to checkout, depending on where the consumer is located, that's what the tax rate will be calculated on. So if you're based in Ontario, you're going to have a different tax rate to if you're in Alberta. And so we have to wait until the checkout to see where the end consumer is located, and then the tax is calculated at that point of sale. So as a consumer, say I'm from Canada, for example, I'm very used to going up to a checkout, for example, and checking out, and then taxes being added on top of that. So very, very common. And the tax rates across Canada range from 5%. Some provinces only have that GST. They have no other PST. And some provinces go all the way up to 15% taxes. And those are typically covered under the HST, where they've harmonized the provincial sales tax rate and the goods and services, the government level tax rate under one tax rate. And so it's all kind of consumed under that 15%. So keep that in mind as buyers across Canada are going to be purchasing from you.
Okay, and registration itself for all the taxes. So if someone wants to register for all three types of taxes, are they able to do themselves as a foreigners by communicating with authorities, or you need some kind of a third company like yours? Maybe it's obligation.
So you can actually register directly with by yourself, and it's not just three. You have to remember that. So there's going to be one GST, which will cover all of the HST provinces that I mentioned, but then there's 4 provinces that have PST. So say you're selling on your own website and you want to PST register, so you're going to have one GST, and then 4 provincial sales taxes, so 5 in total that you need to register for if you're selling, say, through your own website and taking on all the responsibility for yourself. But yes, you can absolutely do that directly with the tax authorities in each of the provinces, and then the CRA on top of that.
Yeah, it sounds quite overwhelming. And if you need help, SimplyVAT can help you, right, Alex?
Correct. Yeah. So we would do all of the GST or HST or PST registrations, and then depending on what your filing frequency, how much your turnover is, that would determine the filing frequency in the province or under the GST, and then we would do those filings for you based on that turnover.
How long does it take to get all the registrations if you're a foreign company?
So it can take a little bit of time, especially for that GST number. You need to get a Canadian business number first, and this Canadian business number will be the number that it's kind of like, I liken it all to European taxes. It's like the EORI number. It identifies you as the importer. You use this Canadian business number on all of your imports going into Canada. And then once you have that, then you apply for the GST off the back of that. So this could take around 14 weeks to get registered there. So it's important, again, if you are getting GST registered or wanting to reclaim any of your taxes, or maybe need to get GST registered, make sure you're doing that well in advance.
Perfect. And SimplyVAT is here to help you. You will find the link below for SimplyVAT website. Contact them, contact Alex, and they will sort Canada taxes for you if you are want to sell in marketplaces over there. So thank you very much, Alex, and good luck in your business. Bye-bye.
Thank you. And make sure you like and subscribe to Augustus's channel.
I hope this video was useful, and if you need help with being tax compliant in European marketplaces, in Canada, and a few more countries, you will find the link below in the description to SimplyVAT website. Contact them, mention OrangeClick, mention this video, and get a small discount for their services. And now I would like to invite you to watch other video with Alex, where she talks about European taxes and what you need to do to know if you want to sell your Amazon products in Europe.